Hi there, Mr. Holcomb here with another episode of The Math Behind the Modules. This is Lesson 6, Rational Numbers on the Number Line. Opening exercise is a classwork where students are to write the decimal equivalent of each fraction. So I will pause the video here. You try to do these three fractions, convert them into decimals. When you are done, press play, and we'll see how you did. Okay, so now that you're back, there's a couple of different ways we can do this. Okay, by memory, for one thing, 1/2 is 0.5, but another way to do this is to get your denominator, the bottom number, to be a 10, 100, a 1,000, or a 10,000, and so on and so on and so on, okay? So in order to make 2 10, I can multiply the top and bottom by 5. 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 2 is 10. And when you say this, you say 5 over 10 or 5 divided by 10, or how about this? 5 tenths. And when you say that, that means 10th position, 0.5, 5 tenths. Okay? Another way we could do these is take the denominator and divide the numerator by it. And obviously 2 will not go into 1, so I put a 0 here and add a 0 here, and then 5 times 2 is 10, subtract, and have no remainder, so there's my answer. Okay? Whatever way you feel comfortable, if you want to divide, how many times does 5 go into 4, and so forth, I just see that this 5 is simply, you can simply multiply by 2, top and bottom, and 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 2 is 10, so when I say that, 8 tenths is 0.8. Okay, whenever we have a mixed number, like 6 tenths, that's a whole number, that's a fraction or decimal. So 6 will be in front of the decimal. And then we don't have to convert this because there's already a 10, a 0, a 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 in the denominator. So I can just say 7 tenths. 7 tenths, 6.7. Okay? Now we're going to go the other direction. Write the fraction equivalent to each decimal. Okay, 0.42, well that's 10th, and that's 100th. So just say 42 100ths. Okay, we want to reduce whenever possible, so this is even and this is even, so they're both divisible by 2. So half of 42 is 21, and half of 100 is 50. Okay, and if you're still not familiar with factors, we can do a factor tree and check. 21 is 3 times 7. 50 is 2 times 25. 25 is 5 times 5. 5, 5, 2, 7, 3. Nothing in common between the two. I cannot reduce this any further. Okay, now I have a number in front of the decimal. That's the easy part. It's 3. 0.75, if I put that over 100, it's 75 100ths, and so I will simply write that. Reduce, the 3 stays the same. 25 will go into 75 3 times. 25 will go into 100 4 times. My answer is 3 3/4. Okay, the last one, 36. All right, I have a 0 at the end here. After a decimal, following zeros mean nothing, okay? They mean nothing. They don't even have to be there, just for starters, but I'm going to say this 36 is the whole portion, okay? Actually, we're converting it into a fraction, so I don't use the decimal. 36, and if you aren't realizing that that 0 is unnecessary, you would say 90 100ths. You're just creating more work for yourself, but you'd have to cancel, and it's 36 9 tenths. Okay. So this is my answer. Okay? Okay. And here's example 1. If B is a non-zero whole number. Okay, so let's stop right there. It can't be 0, and it has to be a whole number. Do you know what a whole number is? Whole numbers are numbers on the number line that include 0 and go to the right forever. no decimals or fractions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to infinity. So it can't be negative, and this says non-zero, whole numbers. So in other words, b can be 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to infinity, no fractions or decimals, but it can't be negative. Okay? So if b is a whole number, non-zero, because if it were 0, 1 divided by 0 is undefined. We cannot divide 1 by 0. Undefined. If you want to have a little fun with this, ask Siri on your iPhone what 1 divided by 0 is. I won't let the cat out of the bag. You can watch that on your own if you haven't done it. Ask Siri what 1 divided by 0 is. Then the unit fraction is 1 over b. Is located on the number line by dividing the segment between 0 and 1. So what we're doing is picking a value between 0 and 1 into b segments of equal length. One of the b segments has 0 as its left endpoint. The right endpoint of this segment corresponds to the unit fraction 1 over b. And at this point you're probably saying, what? Okay, I'll just hang in there, I'll explain. The fraction a over b is located on the number line by joining a segments of length 1 over b so that 1, the left endpoint of the first segment is 0, and 2, the right endpoint of each segment is the left endpoint of the next segment. The right endpoint of the last segment corresponds to the fraction a over b. So this says locate and graph the number 3/10 and its opposite on the number line. Okay, so we're given a number line here. 0 is our center, and it goes to -1 on the left, and it goes to +1 on the right. So this segment, if you will, this is a segment from 0 to 1, or -1 I mean, and this is a segment from 0 to 1. They're the same length, but one's positive going in the right direction, and one is negative going in the left direction. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into 10 congruent pieces. Okay, I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to use a ruler, and so I can do it accurately. So if I put this right here, all right, this is, they didn't really make it easy for me, did they? They could have made this a little bit longer and made it exactly 3 inches, then I could find the midpoint. Okay, so right now I'm at 2 and 15/16. That's fantastic. So half of that is approximately 1.5. So I'm just going to do an approximation. It's 1.5, but a little bit less. So this right here would be the midpoint. If I cut this in half again, or into 5 pieces, okay, so this ruler really isn't working for us because they didn't give me a segment that is an actual exact distance. Okay, so I found the midpoint anyway, approximately. So now I'm going to break this up into, I'm trying to do congruent pieces. So if this is halfway in between, and let's do tenths. So I want 10 congruent segments in between 0 and 1. I've just cut this in half, so this is 1/2 right here, or 5/10. So 4, 3, 2, 1/10. So there's going to be 4 more segments in here. I'm trying to make them as close to equal as possible. There's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, and do the same on this side. And this is 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and then finally 10/10. So what this is saying is the fraction AB is located on the number line by joining a segment of length 1 over B. Well, I chose B to be 10. B is greater than 0, and it's a whole number. Okay, so I'm following the rule. 1, it says the left endpoint of the first segment is 0, and sure enough, this segment starts at 0 and goes to 1/10. That is the right endpoint of this little segment. So if I created a segment from 0 to 1/10, right here, that left endpoint is 0. The right endpoint is 1/10. Then it says the right endpoint of each segment is the left endpoint of the next segment. So what they're saying is the next segment would have a left endpoint of 1/10 and would go to 2/10. And then if I continue this, the left endpoint of the third segment would start at 2/10 and then go to 3/10. So that's what they mean by saying the left segment is the next segment, or the right end segment, I'm sorry. The right endpoint is the next segment's left endpoint. So then if I go like this, then 3/10 is the left endpoint and 4/10 is the so on. The right endpoint of the last segment corresponds to the fraction a over b. So in this case, a would be 1, a would be 2, a would be 3, and so on and so on. Okay? Okay, so now let's answer this question. Locate and graph the number 3/10. So let me erase what I have here. Alright. So it says locate and graph the number 3/10 and its opposite on a number line. So to locate 3/10, I have to find the left endpoint, which is the number we're looking for. Locate and graph the number 3/10 and its opposite on the number line. So what I would have to do is find an endpoint, a line segment of length 3/10. So I would start at 0 and go to the right 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and my right endpoint is this. So we're really just counting over. So now what they're saying is on this number line, find 3/10 and its opposite. Well, the opposite would be the same thing on the other side. So here is 5/10. I'm just approximating this time. It's negative. And this would be 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, trying to make them equal. Okay, and then do the same over here. 4, 3, 2. Okay. The erase is way too much. I need to pause when I. Okay, so here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4/10, negative 3/10, negative 2/10, negative 1/10. So if I start at 0, I want to make a segment the same length going the opposite direction. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, and there is my segment on the left that's blue, and my segment on the right that's red, and these are supposed to be equal. You can see visually that the blue one is a bit longer, but remember this is an approximation. Okay. So exercise 1. Use what you know about the point -7/4 and its opposite to graph both points on the number line below. The fraction -7/4 is located between which two consecutive integers? Explain your reason. Okay, so in this case, if I do quarters, because that's my b, 4 is b, so over here I'm going to write a equals 7, b equals 4. Okay. So I'm going to use this number line here. So finally they gave me one that has all the markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so the midpoint of 17, half of 16 is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 would be my midpoint right here. Call that 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the right, 8 on the left is 16, plus my midpoint makes 17. Okay, so B is my 4, so I'm just going to draw divide symbols at each marker from the left all the way to the right. B is 4. B is 4. B is 4. So these are all 4s. Okay, so bear with me. This is going to take a little while. We have to be patient to understand fully what we're trying to do in this lesson. Okay, so there's B. I want to graph negative 7/4. So we have to go to the left of 0. So here's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, graph negative 7/4. And its opposite. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4. The opposite of negative 7, I went 7 to the left, I have to go 7 to the right, and there is my opposite. Okay? The fraction is between which two consecutive integers? An integer is a positive or negative number that goes from negative infinity to infinity. Okay? What I mean by that is it's 0, 1, 2, and dots mean go on forever. And then negative 1, negative 2, and dots go on forever the other way. No decimals, no fractions. So it says which two integers are these between? Well, an integer is a number that will give us a whole number when we divide the two. So negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. And negative 7/4 is between negative 1 and negative 2. So on the number line, each segment will have equal lengths of 1/4. The fraction is located between negative 1 and negative 2. Okay? And here's the explanation. I brought it in so you didn't have to see my poor handwriting. Okay, 7/4 is the opposite of negative 7/4. It is the same distance from 0, but on the opposite side of 0. Since negative 7/4 is to the left of 0, 7/4 is to the right of 0. The original fraction is located between negative 2 or negative 8/4, negative 1, which is negative 4/4. Okay? So there you have it. Example 2. A water level of Lake Rose. The water level of a lake rose 1.25 feet after it rained. Answer the following questions using the number line below. A. Write a rational number to represent the situation. Okay. A rational number is a number with a ratio or a fraction. So we have a whole number 1. And 0.25 means 25 100ths, which equals 1. And there's 125 and 25. And there's 4 25s and 100. So the answer is 1.25. B. What two integers is 1 1/4 between on the number line? Well, if I just cancel this, it's 1. And if I round up to the next whole number, it is 2. So it is between 1 and 2. C. Write the length of each segment on the number line as a decimal and fraction. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 pieces between 0 and 1, or 4 segments. So they're quarters. So it's going to be 4. It's going to be a 4. Okay, it's going to be really hard for me to write. Okay, so it's going to be negative 1/4, negative 2/4, negative 3/4, negative 4/4, negative 5/4, negative 6/4, and negative 7/4. Doing the same above is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is 1, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and finally 2. Now represent those as decimals. It says and decimals. So this would be 0. 1/4 is 0.25, 0.5, 0.75. If you want them all the same digits, put 0.50, 1.0, 1.25, 1.50, 1.75, and 2.0. Okay, 0 is just 0. You want to put 0.0? Sure. Negative 0.25, negative 0.50, negative 0.75, negative 1.0, negative 1.25, negative 1.50, negative 1.75, and negative 2.0. So C is done. D, what will be the water level after it rained? Graph the point number line. So the water level of a lake rose 1 and 2.25 feet after it rained. So here's the water level right here, this blue. So if I go up 1.25 feet is right here. Okay? So the water level of the lake rose 1.25 feet after it rained. Okay, so what will the water level be after it rained? Graph the point on the number line. So let me not draw that line. Graph the point. And there it is, 1.25. E. After 2 weeks have passed, the water level of the lake is now opposite of the water level when it rained. So in other words, there was a drought, went a long time without water, and it evaporated and so forth. The fish drank the water, so on. What will be the new water level? So if it rose 1.25, it went up this much, and then it has to drop down back to the original, and then down another 1.25, so it went the other way, so we're at negative 1.25. Okay? After 2 weeks have passed, the water level of the lake is now opposite of the water level when it rained. Okay? Oh, I just answered that question. I put the answer in comments. F. State a rational number that is not an integer. Okay? Not an integer. So it cannot be. So before I go any further, I'm going to cross out the answers that it can't be. That's an integer. 1 is an integer. 0 is an integer. Negative 1 is an integer. Negative 2 is an integer. So state a rational number that's not an integer, whose value is less than 1.25, and describe its location between two consecutive integers on the number line. So I want to be below this point right here, so any one of these decimals or fractions will work, except for the green ones I crossed out. So I'm just going to quickly pick one, and I'll pick this one. Any one of these would work other than the green X's. And I chose negative 1.5. Or negative 6/4. State a rational number. So, a right fraction, negative 6/4. It is between. So I'm going to do this time. Between means less than something to the right and greater than something to the left. Well, it's less than 2, negative 2. I'm sorry, no, it's not. It's greater than negative 2. Watch with your negative signs. But it's less than negative 1. Okay, so look over here. Here's negative 1. Here's negative 2. So it's less than negative 1, greater than negative 2. Okay, that's what this is. Okay. Exercise 2, our story problem. Okay, this was a class exercise that was supposed to take about 10 minutes, where students are seated in groups and they distribute one sheet of grid paper and a ruler to each student and complete a task that we did in class. I'm not going to cover this on this video. Okay, so that's the end of lesson 6. So do your problem.